Hello everybody, here we are today and we're going to be doing a season preview over the Edmonton Oilers. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, new to me, whatever the case may be. Now that being said, let's get on into it. So the first storyline here is going to be, can some of the guys that caught fire at the end of last season continue to do so going into this season? I'm looking at two players in particular, Evan Bouchard and Stuart Skinner. Now Bouchard is a guy that the first good chunk of the year, he wasn't putting up those traditional numbers that make you say, wow. However, his final 19 games played, he had 19 points. So a point per game average isn't too shabby. As for Stuart Skinner, he was absolutely electric at March through the rest of the year. Ended up going 14-1-1 with a .918 save percentage. Was he perfect along the way? Not necessarily. But I'll say to this, there was some games that were a little bit ugly. However, at the same time, he was playing some good teams in that run. He had games against Vegas, Toronto, Boston, all playoff teams. Vegas, of course, won the Stanley Cup, and he was getting peppered some of those games. My logic is this: if Stuart can just allow 3 goals or less every night, this Edmonton offense is going to be good enough to be able to get the job done more often than not. And I think for Stuart, it's kind of interesting to see, is he the future? He was viewed as the future a couple of years back, and a lot of people talked about, oh, our goalie issues are going to be fixed once Stuart Skinner arrives. People said that on my YouTube videos a couple of years ago, and then we got to see some really good flashes from him as the Oilers caught fire, partially attributed to him in net. Obviously, you've got Campbell there too, but again, one of these situations where if you have 2 good goalies, it's not a problem. And then again, back to Bouchard. If he is able to play a top 4 role and average point per game, unless he's having terrible defensive numbers, you're going to be a-okay. In the way that him and Mattias Ekholm were able to really mesh together once they got Ekholm in that trade is possibly going to mean that you get a great pairing there for the rest of the season, for a full season, I should say. And we'll kind of be begging to question what's going to happen afterwards, because I think Ekholm is a free agent afterwards. But again, can those two really get things going? Because if they are able to, this team is going to get a big boost from some guys that maybe you weren't expecting going into last season, but now we're at that point. The second thing is, will we see a big trade one way or the other? What exactly do I mean by that? Well, in my notes, I am talking about an Erik Karlsson trade. Guess what? That is old news. I did that Saturday night when I took the notes, and then Karlsson was traded Sunday morning. So we're just going to throw that on out there. But it does remain to be seen with what the Oilers have. Will they try out, and will they go out and get a big name player? I think to the degree that we're looking at Karlsson, probably not. That's hard to do considering that he was that blue line addition everybody was talking about. Oh my gosh, this power play is going to be so exciting there with EK65. However, obviously, he's in Pittsburgh, which means they have to go out and figure what is the best route to go, what position should we go, and what financially should we do to make this happen. I don't know. You've obviously got Draisaitl and McDavid's contracts, which make things a little difficult. And then you've got some other guys that you probably have to worry about. You've got Hyman's contract, Campbell's contract, a lot of things just moving around at the moment. I don't exactly know if they will make a big trade in terms of getting a guy like Karlsson, but maybe some more minor ones to fill out the depth of the team. However, let's say things get really crazy and they're bad. What is going to happen there? Could we see a big trade in a negative sense? I'm talking about possibly trading Leon Draisaitl. This seems like the biggest sin of all for Oilers fans, but I was having a talk with a buddy from work talking about if they traded Draisaitl away, he just has this year and next year on their contract with Edmonton, they could possibly get a lot more depth to help out the team, because they obviously are a team that relies so much on their top 2, that being McDavid and Draisaitl. And what kind of return would you get? That remains to be seen. However, I have to say, I really think that would come down to if he said, I don't plan on signing with Edmonton, I want this amount of money, or the team was really underperforming. So will I see a big trade happening here? Probably not. Will Draisaitl get traded? I think that's more of a next season thing if they're not able to hammer out a deal after this season. But holy cow, I can only imagine what would happen there, and hopefully that doesn't come to it for Oilers fans. The third thing is a little bit harder to talk about or predict, and that is whether or not they can avoid a serious injury to their dynamic duo. You look at what I just said with Draisaitl and McDavid, they are the thing, the straw that stirs the drink, if you will, for this offense. And if one of them went down, it would be difficult to manage. And that is one of the things that is realistic. You absolutely have seen McDavid go out with an injury, and this is a physical game. We see it all the time where guys have freak injuries or their body just wears down from the grind of a season. Next thing you know, they're out for the whole year. If McDavid's out, that's a problem. If Draisaitl's out, that's also a problem. How are they going to manage them, and what would they do if things went wrong for them? The power play, I think, automatically would be something you would talk about because their power play is historically good. Why do you think that is? Especially with a guy like McDavid there. And what they're able to do offensively is just outgun a lot of teams. And they are able to do things like double shift those two. They did that in the playoffs. The Athletic had a good article about that. If you're seeing a guy like McDavid out there for 25, 26, 27 minutes per night, that is going to be hard to defend. And you can throw people at him, but we've seen before, New York Rangers, anyone, doesn't really matter if you've got 4 defenders out there that are trying to stop him. He'll skate through everybody and score. However, for Edmonton, it's kind of one of those things where you have such an overpowered weapon. Problem is, if you lose it, then you're suddenly wondering what's going to happen. Do they have enough scoring depth? In my opinion, no. Obviously, they have Hyman, Ryan Nugent, Hopkins. You have Kane, some other players that are very good, or at least put up good numbers. But I got to say right now, Kane's getting a little bit older. I think Hyman benefits from playing with McDavid, and I would just say that there's not enough depth if something like that happened, and there would be a lot of problems. So Woodcroft being able to kind of protect his guys is going to be the big question here for Edmonton, and how they do so remains to be seen. And then the final thing here, as we're just wrapping it up, is do I see Edmonton as a playoff team? Going to be completely honest here, I do. I don't know about Cup contender just yet. Jay Fresh's model basically has them as the winner of the Pacific Division with 108 points, which I think would be incredible for them. I just got to say the Pacific is pretty deep. You have teams like Seattle, Calgary, Vegas, and LA obviously looking to make a push. Vancouver, I don't think is going to be very good, but we will see. And for the Oilers, it comes down to, again, having their stars do their thing, having the supporting cast do well, and also having guys like Skinner, that is young, step up and do really well for them. And with guys like Ekholm, can he continue to do well? He was a great addition for them. He's able to shut things down in a top 4 role for the Oilers. I don't think that they're a Cup contender, kind of like I've said before. I really want to see McDavid win a Stanley Cup here, but also I think with what they've got, they're good enough to get to the playoffs and make a run. However, they are not deep enough to handle some of those better teams in the rest of the league. So for now, we will see what happens. What are your thoughts for the Edmonton Oilers this year? A, do you think they'll make the playoffs? B, do you think that they could advance to the Stanley Cup final? And C, do you think they'll win it? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you go with hockey already. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.